Cell membrane and cell transport.
Cell membrane. The cell membrane is the thin double-layered layer surrounding the cell that determines which substances are permitted in and out of the cell. This layer is made up of phospholipids and proteins and serves as the barrier that separates the cell from its environment.
The cell membrane is semipermeable, which means that only certain substances can pass through it without assistance. Some substances that regularly need to get across the cell membrane are lipids, sugars, water, and salt.
Phospholipids. So what makes the membrane semi-permeable? Phospholipids. Since the membrane is composed of primarily lipids, lipid-soluble substances cross the membrane without any resistance because like dissolves like.
The heads and tails of the phospholipids, along with the proteins that make up the membrane, are arranged into what is called the fluid mosaic model. The hydrophobic fatty acid tails face inward, and the hydrophilic phosphate heads face outwards.
One of the ways that substances move across the cell membrane is by a process called simple diffusion. This is when a substance moves from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. In other words, the substance moves down the concentration gradient. If there is a high concentration of a substance outside the cell and low concentration inside the cell, the substance will move into the cell. The most important thing to remember about diffusion is that it does not require any energy. Another name for diffusion is passive transport.
You might be wondering how substances that aren't lipid-soluble get in and out of the cell. These substances rely on protein embedded in the plasma membrane for transport. Special proteins called channel proteins help these substances across the membrane by picking it up on one side and carrying it across to the other. Like diffusion, facilitated transport moves from high to low concentration, so it does not require energy. Substances that require facilitated transport are usually larger or charged molecules such as sugars, amino acids, or fats.
A special kind of diffusion called osmosis is how water moves in and out of the cell. Water molecules diffuse across the cell membrane from high to low concentration. Since it is a form of diffusion, it doesn't require any energy.
The direction of osmosis is determined by the comparison of total solute concentrations. There are three different possibilities for these solutions. A hypotonic solution has less solute and more water. A hypertonic solution has less water and more solute. And an isotonic solution has an equal amount of both solute and water. A very important aspect of cell survival depends on managing and balancing water uptake and loss.
Another method of cell transport is called active transport. This occurs when a substance wants to move from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. Unlike diffusion and osmosis, active transport requires energy.
A type of active transport is endocytosis. This happens when particles trying to enter the cell are too large. The cell uses a portion of the cell membrane to engulf the substance, forming a pocket and eventually a vacuole. Two types of endocytosis are penocytosis and phagocytosis. Penocytosis is when the cell ingests liquids, or cell drinking, and phagocytosis is when the cell ingests solids, or cell eating. The other type of active transport is exocytosis, where the vacuole fuses with the membrane and forces contents out of the cell.